An X-Men Evolution episode that has one of the X-Men nearly die in the desert? Well, at least that's a better story than Dark Phoenix's story. Okay, now that I got my Dark Phoenix joke out of the way, on to the video. Hey guys, Sam here, and yes, we are going to be looking at an episode from X-Men Evolution. It was a show based on the beloved X-Men characters that ran from 2000 to 2003, right around the same time the first two X-Men films came out. You know, a time where we trusted Bryan Singer to be a good director and person. I remember watching some of the episodes growing up, and it wasn't exactly that bad. Now that I'm older and have watched some more episodes from the show, my opinion on it has been kind of the same. Still not that bad. I'm not saying it's a bad show, but I'm not saying it's a great show either. It was just good for what it was. But I think I found one episode that sticks out from the rest of the pack, and that one is called Blind Alley. The episode starts off with one of the biggest X-Men villains of all time, Mystique, being secured in Area 51. No, I am not making an Area 51 joke. But then Mystique breaks loose and escapes. We then cut to the X-Mansion where the students are repairing some damages to the school, like Scott and Logan working on the satellite dish and Jean and Storm putting back the fountain. But this is when both Scott and Jean start making googly eyes at each other. And now this is where I need to give some context. In the show, Scott and Jean were definitely best friends, but there were times where they had feelings for each other, so this led to them having a will they or won't they relationship. They both get jealous of each other, they both find their own love interests, they sometimes get into petty arguments, and of course, it took them a long time before they admitted their feelings for each other. And keep in mind, this episode was in Season 3, and to me, this was one of the biggest flaws in the show. Now, I don't have anything against them being a couple. I mean, they are one of the most popular pairings in comics history, but seeing them go through this back and forth relationship with each other was just kind of annoying to me. So I will give the show credit for finally having an episode where they do want to share their feelings for each other. But as you'd expect, they don't know how. So Scott and Jean ask their mentors for advice. While Jean gets the more optimistic advice from Storm, Scott gets the more practical advice from Wolverine. But before they could say anything to each other, Scott gets a call from his brother who somehow got stranded in Mexico. So Scott goes there to try and help him. But then, boom! Scott gets knocked out. Turns out it was Mystique the whole time. And then she strands Scott without his shades in the middle of the desert. Yeah, remember what I said at the beginning of the video? I wasn't making it up. Cyclops, who is a teenager in this show, is now left to fend for himself and potentially die all alone in the desert without his shades on. And that's extra bad because without his glasses, he won't be able to open his eyes to see where he's going. I mean, he could open his eyes, but... Yeah, not a good idea. So Scott walks aimlessly through the desert, not knowing where he's going. And from here on out, he pretty much goes through hell. He gets chased and attacked by coyotes, gets banged up after falling off a cliff, gets picked up by some construction workers and taken to a hospital, which sounds good until the doctor asks him to open his eyes.
Sustingalo. No! No! Don't!
Again, not a good idea. So he accidentally destroys a portion of the hospital, staggers out of the building, almost gets mugged by a street gang, and when it looks like he's in the clear, Mystique comes back to kick his sorry ass. I mean, damn, poor Scott. Thankfully, Jean Grey finds him and defeats Mystique. Scott is saved, he gets his shades back, Jean and Scott finally confess their feelings for each other, cuddle with each other, and Wolverine, Storm, and even Professor Xavier all have a collective sigh of relief, knowing that it is about time they said it. The end. So that's the story. What are my thoughts? Well, it was definitely solid, but not perfect. So how about we talk about the good stuff first? The first good thing about this episode is Mystique. Man, is she one villain to hate, but also admire at the same time. She escapes Area 51 with her mutant powers, tricks Scott, knocks him out, strands him in the desert, and then comes back to whoop his ass. Now you might be wondering why she has it out for Scott specifically. Well, it turns out that in a previous adventure, Cyclops left her behind to be captured at Area 51 as the rest of the X-Men were escaping. So you can definitely understand why she'd be so pissed and want revenge on him. Although, to be fair, Scott only left her behind because she wouldn't tell him where Professor Xavier was during a big life or death situation. But the main thing is, Mystique is one badass villain, and I just love to hate her. Another thing I like is the animation. That was one of the show's big strengths, as its animation was always very good, especially during the action scenes too, which are also great in this episode. But I think the best parts of the animation were when Scott is walking all by himself in the desert. The sound effects, the atmosphere, and the subtle music makes this seem really eerie and kind of unnerving to me because it made me fear for what could happen next to him. I also like how, despite not being able to see where he is, Scott does manage to fight back against Mystique a few times by using his other senses. Sure, he didn't defeat her, but he still was able to manage a few good hits before Jean Grey came and stopped her. Even some bits of the dialogue are pretty nice too, and my personal favorite would have to be this one.
The good news, no one was there. The bad news, no one was there.
So that's pretty much the good stuff. Now, what about the stuff that isn't good? Well, I have just a couple of complaints. One being some of the dialogue can be a bit on the nose, like this.
How sweet. Girlfriend to the rescue. You got that right, lady.
I can't believe you even knew where I was.
It must be a bond we have.
But I think the biggest nitpick I have is Professor Xavier not believing Jean when she thinks that Scott is in trouble. There's a scene where Jean senses that Scott is in danger and she tells Xavier about it, but he just shrugs it off and claims that she had a bad dream. He also says that she couldn't possibly have the psychic power to sense him that well because he's so far away. Even he admits his power isn't that strong. And I guess I can kind of understand that logic, but it's also kind of weird that Xavier wouldn't believe Jean Grey, one of his brightest and powerful pupils, when she thinks Cyclops is in trouble.
What, did Professor Xavier suddenly turn to Consuela for a moment? Professor Xavier, I think Scott might be in trouble. No, Scott not in trouble. You just had a bad dream. But I can sense it. I think Mystique might be after him. No.
But he does eventually help Jean track down Scott when she confirms her suspicion, so I'll just chalk this up as a nitpick. And aside from those little gripes, I don't really have any more problems with this episode. It could be funny, it could be action-packed, and it could even be sweet. And even when there's a line that's not as good, they come back with a really nice line like this.
I don't know how to explain it.
You don't have to. I just wish I could open my eyes and see your face.
Aw, no, that's really sweet. It also has nice animation, Mystique being a villain we love to hate, and a nice happy ending to wrap it up. Overall, it's a solid episode. So if I had to give it a final score, I'd give it an 8 out of 10, and I do recommend it.
Well, it's about time.
That's for sure.
Okay guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you're wondering why I decided to do drawn stills of me in this review, well, the answer is quite simple. Because I can. Deal with it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and as always, my name is Sam, and mwah! Good night, everybody.